Right.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank LOTIERZO, former writer, try to be full-time observer, joined by Jack Hirsch, former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. We're a little late coming on tonight. Not a big deal, Jack. How are you? I know you wanted to fight. I hope you weren't late.
Well, I had my apologies, technical difficulty getting on here. And it kind of reminded me of the past when they've had those closed circuit showings and the picture of the big fight. Now, asked me, for example, the Leonard Hagler fight. I never saw it live because the place that I saw it at, they had technical difficulty and they could never get the picture back. So I was having this problem, but I'm glad I had my backup thing on the screen. And yeah, Saturday night.
That is scary, Jack. I had that happen too at the Leonard Hagler fight. 5 minutes before the fight, they lost the picture for a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, I lost it. I didn't see it all together, but that's another story.
Oh, I would have gone crazy.
Saturday night, I was at the Barclays Center, and it's what boxing's about. I mean, it was a great fight atmosphere. A one-sided but exciting main event. And it kind of reminded me of a take-back fight, even though it played out slightly different of the first Joe Frazier, Jerry Quarry fight, in that Frazier completely dominated the fight for the most part, except for one round, except for the first round. Second round was somewhat close, but the point is this. Zayas has one big round, and he could probably hang his hat on that for quite a long time because as Boots gains in stature and does what we both think he's going to do, establish himself as an all-time great and be completely dominant, we're going to look back on what Zayas did. Yeah, but Zayas hurt him a couple of times. He shook him up. And other fighters are going to hang their hat on that in a sense. Oh, well, you know, he could be had. Look what Zayas did to him. Never mind that Boots dominated the fight. Never mind that. Zayas did have a couple of moments. And I'll admit, sitting there in the third round, I forgot I was a reporter. I was covering it for my publication, Boxing News Monthly. Frank, I turned into a fan. I'm ashamed to say it. I got caught up in the excitement. I'm going, Tris Dixon, a great journalist, was sitting next to me, and I'm going, he's hurt, like Boots is hurt. I didn't go into the fight rooting for one guy over the other, not at all. But as it turned out, Zayas was so outclassed, and you thought he'd have no chance at all. Just the idea he could come back, Frank, and for a moment, I thought to myself, Zayas might actually take him out, and he's going to be the next Puerto Rican superstar. Maybe Zayas is as good as, you know, he says he is. The laugh is on us that Zayas is maybe going to be the next Felix Trinidad or whoever else.
But the other side of that is we've wanted to see Boots face adversity, and he did. Now, some people are not happy the way he fought out of it, and like, you know, I heard Terrence Crawford say, well, he doesn't know when to hold or how to hold. And I agree with that. And down the road, that might be an issue. But on this night, he showed that he could come back from adversity and he fought out of it. So I think, as we talked before the fight, I think the stature of both guys went up. The only thing I'll say, look, Boots has all the tools. He's the real deal. I don't know if he's the next Crawford or Leonard. I don't know if he's that guy, but he's one of those guys. And he has all the tools. He does need to calm down a little bit, Jack. He's too much of a killer be killed guy. He really showed a terrific jab early in the fight from both sides, and then he abandoned it. But, you know, look, he answered all the questions. I don't know if he's the next all-time great. but I am not going to write that off. I think he's clearly one of the 10 best fighters in the game. As you said, it was a one-sided fight, but Zayas did acquit himself well. He did push. He was Boots' hardest fight, even though he didn't want to say that at the press conference. And he faced adversity, and he did what great fighters do. He came back. He has all the tools, Jack, but he gets hit. And as I said, I don't care if George Benton is his trainer. That's his DNA, and he's always going to be that guy. Where I said the difference between Crawford and Leonard is, as much as they try to take your head off, they would box you first and then try to set the table and take your head off. Boots is more of a guy. He's going in with the big guns the first time he sees a chance, and he's going to open up.
But I'm going to tell you, Frank, Boots is better defensively than people think. When
He made a miss.
When Boots is trying to make an opponent miss the way he was trying to make Zayas miss, he makes a miss. Boots gets hit when he's offensive minded, when he's attacking. But if Boots just wants to box, he could box very commendably, very commendably.
But Jack, he can do that. But remember, all the guys, look, Sugar Ray Leonard got hit, Robinson got hit, Hearns got hit, Hagler got hit. The guys that are trying to take your head off are going to get hit because in order to do that, you have to be in range to hit him, and he can hit you back. And that's what happens. He gets caught during exchanges, and so does Zayas. And so did Zayas.
Right. And to me, if you eliminate the third round, it was completely one-sided. Zayas would come forward, and he was getting hit with terrific shots, not only to the chin, but the body. Terrific shots. Boots was digging down and really teeing off with real combinations. And even though Zayas went down 3 times, he showed a superb chin. And
he showed a lot of heart and fortitude, Jack. But I disagree. I had someone try to tell me that they thought Zayas fought the wrong fight. I don't think he fought the wrong fight. I think Boots didn't give him a chance to box. He was trying to take his head off, and it was like sink or swim. I don't think that's the way Zayas wanted to go about fighting, and he even said that. But, it's like trying to blame Joe Frazier or Quarry for banging with Frazier. Quarry didn't have a chance. Some people say, well, Hearns should have tried to box Hagler. Hagler didn't let him. Boots kind of imposed his will on Zayas the same way. And as we said before the fight, he just is a little bit better at everything, and he has more tools.
You're correct on this. If Zayas had tried to box, had tried to circle the ring, Boots would have been right on him. Right?
Oh, he would have swarmed him, Jack. Yeah, he had to try to get his respect. And look, in the third round, he clearly did. But Boots is a special fighter, and he said, "You know what? That's not going to scare me. You're not going to fight me. I'm going to fight my way out of it." And he did.
And I'm going to tell you, Frank, this might sound crazy, and I don't know whether this is going to be the case. But boxing is about having a brand. And by this time next year, Boots, for example, he could beat Josh Kelly, who I think he's going to fight in this next fight. That's what Eddie Hearns said.
He'll take him apart.
He'll take apart Sebastian Fundora. He'll take apart Virgil Ortiz. I don't give Ortiz very little chance. But guess what? Zayas needs just one halfway decent win, and he might actually be bigger than Boots next year, as crazy as it seems at this moment. And I'll give you a perfect example. Ryan Garcia loses to Riley Romero, and the attitude is, who cares? It didn't mean a thing. It didn't hurt.
But Jack, Zayas doesn't market himself, and he's not the wise guy or bad guy that Ryan Garcia is. Zayas is more laid back and pretty easy going. I don't know if I agree that he's going to explode that big, because he's just not that guy that is, boisterous like Garcia.
He might be bigger than Boots. Okay. If Boots fights 2 times in the next year, let's say once every 6 months till next summer, and let's say he beats Josh Kelly in his next fight, who's a belt holder, and then he beats Sebastian Fundora, which he certainly will, both fights. Boots needs big fights to elevate, to continue to elevate.
Well, Fundora and Ortiz will be big, Jack.
Yeah, but is anyone to be picking Fundora to win? Ortiz is charismatic. So that fight would take off. That fight would garner a lot of attention. A Fundora fight, Fundora's not as charismatic. The fight doesn't excite you. And no, I can't imagine anyone picking Fundora to actually win. A few people might actually pick Ortiz to win. They might actually pick Ortiz to win. Ortiz will,
because he can hit and he'll mix it up. But
right.
I've seen him hurt too, so it's not like he has a concrete chin either.
Yeah. And the one guy, Terrence Crawford, last Thursday night, I saw him at the Boxing Writers Association of America's dinner, and he said he's not coming back to the ring point blank. Now, Frank, we've heard fighters say that constantly before, and guess what? They come back. Same thing as candidates say they're not running for president. Then they announce that they're running 6 months to a year later. Do I believe Crawford when he says he's not coming back? I kind of believe him, and he shouldn't be pressured to come back at all. Yeah, a man retires, leave him alone, okay? Unless he retires when he had a ready-made opponent in the legacy fight waiting for him at that moment. Then that's another matter. Then
Crawford's not coming back, Jack. They said Lennox Lewis was going to. I don't think he's coming back. Like he said, this is Boots' era. And Jack, seriously, that was Boots' best night the other night. Could anyone have seen any path for him to beat Crawford? I just don't see it. I mean, unless Crawford becomes old overnight, there's no path.
No, I see a path. I would pick Crawford at his best to beat the Boots I saw, Saturday night. But I certainly wouldn't count Boots out. I certainly think he was in there with a legitimate shot.
If they fight within the next year, I wouldn't give Boots much of a chance. But I don't think they're going to. And I respect Crawford for that. I think he's like Lennox Lewis.
But Crawford was talking about Boots, saying this and that. Oh, he's not on my level now. Don't talk like that. You're retired. Don't compare yourself to anyone at this point. You're retired.
Well, he did, but Jack, he did say it is his time, and he wishes him well. But it's like I could see his point because he probably got tired of hearing that Boots is the guy that he should fight, and he's afraid of him. It's like nobody need. We don't need to see that fight.
If you no, but if Crawford is certain Boots isn't on his level, and he's not concerned about boxing longer because of what the sport might do to him long term. If that's not an issue, then take the darn fight. It's the biggest fight in all of boxing. And it would, and make no mistake about it, Crawford could use a tiny bit of a legacy boost, only in this regard, when we compare him to the other greats like a Sugar Ray Leonard, for instance. Not many people are putting Crawford ahead of Leonard because Leonard had the legendary fights.
If he beats Boots, nobody's going to put him ahead of Leonard either.
Yeah, I suppose.
No.
At this point, yeah, Boots would have to do more. No, I'm all for Crawford staying retired. Let me.
All right, Jack, that was a great fight. Okay, it was. The third round is as good as it gets. You had two guys that at or near their prime that they fought. Great fight, but I have two issues. Go ahead.
That's the example I meant in the beginning of the show. Frazier Quarry won the first fight. They had the round of the year, and the fight of the year came in second place.
Right.
I could see a repeat of this with Zayas and Boots. The third round maybe being the round of the year, and the fight
Absolutely
being a runner-up.
Jack, two things. Okay. Number one, I am tired of these guys Mickey the scales. I mean, Zayas weighed 180, between 181 and 183 the night of the fight, and Boots was 168. So we basically had a cruiserweight and a super middleweight. I am tired of that. Okay. They have to do something. These weigh-ins a day and a half before the fight. That's too much time. I'm sorry. I don't like that. I mean, the weight limit's 154 and you got a guy 181 and a guy 168 fighting. That's got to change. The other thing is everybody got on me. Are you going to get this fight? I tried to order it through DAZN, Jack. I tried to go through it. And you know what? I couldn't get it. Okay. For some reason, I couldn't get it on my phone, my TV, or my computer. And what really is sad about it is think about this, Jack. Think about if you were 10 years old and I was 8 years old and we saw that fight Saturday night. We would have been boxing fans on Sunday. And because of the way that's the reason why we are boxing fans, because we saw all those fights on network and cable TV. Think of the kids that could have been exposed to boxing that weren't. They have no idea about that fight last night, had no idea who won, how great it was. And it's like, how is the sport going to grow and get more fans? Because when it's boxing like that, it's better than MMA or any martial art or any of the other sports. It's the most exciting, but nobody sees it. And I tried to see it and didn't care about the $75. I wanted to see the fight and I couldn't. I had to see it on a pirate stream that a friend of mine sent me. Then I watched it again on YouTube right after the fight.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on that in a second. I just want to mention Dave Diamante, the ring announcer, is going to be our guest in a few minutes. He was the ring announcer there at the Barclays Center. But Frank, you're 100% correct. I left the arena with Bobby Cassidy Jr., excellent.
We had him on, right.
And right, we had him on the show, and I was talking to him saying, we don't have the same fight fans we had when we were younger. I would go myself to the fight, sit in the stands, watch it. I'd really be into boxing. It's more socialization thing. The Barclays Center is crowded. It's like date night, young friends getting together. They're not true fight fans in the sense of following the sport like the 8-round fighters. I mean, we had Ben Whittaker on the undercard. No one even gave a darn about Ben Whittaker, and we have Bryce Mills from upstate New York on the show. He was on the show against Emiliano Vargas. Unless they were fight fans, they didn't care about Emiliano Vargas. They were into Boots and Zayas, the whole hype on that. But you're right, Frank. It is so frustrating trying to get the fight.
Jack, Joe Bergman.
Frank, if you're not tech savvy, I had a hard technical
right.
And my wife, who's tech savvy, got me on here. I wouldn't even be doing this show with you tonight, Frank, if she wasn't tech savvy. So you're probably upset with her now.
So, no, not at all. I don't want to do it by myself. No. But Joe Bergman and I were talking about this, Jack. And it's like, and a couple other guys I was talking to, it's like, it was such a great fight. And look, those are the fights that got you, me, Joe Bergman, Russell Peltz, all those guys, Henry Haskap, all of us guys got into it because we saw a fight on TV and it was so good, or there was a guy that we were captivated by and it got us into sport. These kids are not exposed to it today. It's like, and how many times do you get fights like that where you get two young guys, like, as I said, at or near their peak, with still a good future ahead of them, who we're going to be hearing about, and nobody saw it. So I don't like the DAZN model, Jack. You know that. I don't like it. It's like, I just don't think it does anybody any good except the people who own it.
I think, I gave in and I got the yearly package unlimited for $449. I didn't need it for Saturday night because I was there, but you could always catch the replays, the full fight, the next day if you're a subscriber. Okay. And I spoke to a journalist from England. He told me he doesn't stay up and get up 3 a.m. anymore. He always catches replays. I mean, the time factor too on the East Coast. This fight ended somewhere like
12:06.
12:06. Isn't that baseball games don't end that late? The NBA on the East Coast doesn't end that late. The NBA on the East Coast ends 10:06, and that's date night for people. Young people as well. And there's such a long period of time between fights. It's ridiculous.
Well, because they had some stoppages Saturday night, and that also pushed it back.
You a former fighter. How long do you need to warm up? If they gave you 10 minutes, you could warm up in 10 minutes and get in the ring and be ready to go. You can warm up in 5 minutes and be ready to go. Give me a break. I mean, you don't need more than a half hour. The crowd's just hanging around because there's a stoppage. And the guys after you, have to understand, in the event of the stoppage, this is the amount of time you have before you enter the ring, like a stop clock, in baseball, a shot clock. Say 15 minutes, 15-minute warning, and the fighter's warming up, so on. And Dana White is right about that. All the time between fights, you watch the UFC, I don't. I hear the UFC keeps things moving all the time.
They do. They do. I watched the card at the White House on June 14th, and it's like one fight was over and it just came right back. I mean, in 10 minutes, the next fight was starting. They do that. But it's just a shame because Boots was better than any fight on that MMA card, and that may have been one of the best cards ever.
To tell me you tried to get the fight and couldn't get the
I
fight.
tried to do it, Jack. I broke down. I had a buddy of mine on the phone who works IT for 3 hospitals, and he's cursing at me and yelling at me and telling me I'm not doing it right. I said, I'm doing exactly what you say. He goes, well, I don't know what it is, but I couldn't get it on the phone, the TV, or the computer. I would have watched it on a pen if I could. I was so desperate to see it. But luckily, a friend of mine sent me a pirate stream that I watched it that way. And then just to make sure I saw everything right, I went on YouTube and then I watched it immediately after the fight. And it was, everything was the same fight. The picture was good enough, but they have to change the model. And Jack, I don't like, and you touched on another thing. I don't like the fact that they have these weigh-ins, the weight disparity. I don't like that the fights start too late, but we're just a bunch of old guys and they're not going to change.
Right. I don't want to get in a habit of us just complaining how wrong things are, because people who tune into this fight tune in because they want to hear about the fighters. Okay. I mean, I think we've gotten our point across. Of course, we're periodically going to mention the complaints, but I don't want to get into it like too heavily.
But Jack, we got to call it like we see it.
Right. About a minute, we're going to have Dave Diamante on. I'll give this a quick intro right before he comes on. Once anyone sees him, they'll know who he is. Well,
and he's a motorcycle rider, right?
Right. Yeah, he's gone to the accidents on the motorcycle. Thankfully, he's still around. I mean, I'm going to mention that to him. He can relate to you with the motorcycle. I don't know, does he still ride it, though? He always goes, the fight starts now. And the slogan, it gets the crowd going. He was the Brooklyn Net PA announcer for years, too. And I was speaking to him yesterday, and he tells me he does miss the NBA, but he likes it more what he's doing now, announcing fights all over the world. Our producer, Brian, as soon as Dave is there, ready, get Dave on. And also because we started a few minutes late, this is for our producer. I'm not sure when the show ends. So when it ends, text me, please, and let me know, or Frank, that we have a minute or 2 to go. And we'll
now, Jack, we saw Bryce Mills lost. I think he's a different league than Vargas. I think a lot of the difference was Vargas is a pretty big puncher, but I also know from a good source that Bryce Mills was injured going into the fight. Not saying that changes anything, but he was not at his best.
Yeah, well, he couldn't turn down the opportunity. Hey,
right.
He had one moment and no one talks about it. I don't know whether you remember the second round, he uncorked a right and he stunned Vargas. And
I didn't see the fight, Jack. I hadn't been hooked up yet.
Watch it. He had one big moment, like out of nowhere. He landed like an overhand right, and he buzzed Vargas. He absolutely buzzed him at that moment, and it was an exciting moment. Look, he went toe-to-toe with Vargas, and he held his own, but eventually firepower wins out. The great fighters, Boots and Vargas, it wins out. Mills's loss is going to age well. I'm going to tell you that now, because Vargas is going to be a force in the future. He's only 22. Vargas is going to win a world title and establish himself as an outstanding fighter. And Bryce Mills can always look back and say, I fought the semifinal at the Barclays Center. I was the chief support to Boots Ennis, and Xander Zayas. I was the chief support. And okay, let's get Dave Diamante on here. I hear he's in the studio raring to go. Hey, Dave, how you doing? Dave Diamante here, a famous ring announcer with that Yankee cap. That's a Yankee cap on, right, Dave? I mean,
Yes, it is.
people won't be able to recognize you. They used to, the long hair going back.
How you doing, Jack? What's going on, buddy?
Can't hear you, Dave.
You can't hear me? Hold on.
I can hear you fine, Dave.
Yeah, I had technical difficulty, Dave, at the beginning of the show. I can't hear you right now.
All right, Frankie, you can hear me?
I can hear you fine, Dave.
All right, good. So it's Jackie. It's Jack with a problem,
Dave,
not me.
I'll say this.
Of
If you're not
course.
more tech savvy than Frank and myself, then we're in trouble because we're not tech savvy.
Well, he looks tech savvy, Jack. The beard gives him a little bit of stature. He looks tech savvy.
I told you, Dave, you should have gotten married and had a wife who would have got you on, could figure this stuff out.
No, look, I'm on. It's
Can't
you
hear
that's got to figure it out.
Like Sergeant, remember that show, Frank Gomapile, Sergeant Carter? I can't hear you.
Yep, Vince
Jack,
Carter.
Okay, we're going to talk boxing, Frank, you and I, in the meantime. And hopefully, Dave, the sound straightens
Frank,
out.
Ask
What?
Jack.
Brian Aunt, our producer, try to get in touch with Dave now, if you can.
I can hear him, Jack.
That's
Dave, you can hear me,
possible.
right?
I got you loud and clear, Frank.
Okay. Dave, while Jack's feeling his oats, let me ask you this. Do you still ride?
There's a text. Let me see.
No,
We
as you
can
can see, I'm
hear
in my
Dave,
car
but
right now.
you
I don't
have-
ride anymore.
I have the issue.
You had a bad fall?
I had a bad fall, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I hear him fine, Jack. We're talking about motorcycles.
Frank, you talk to Dave in the meantime.
Okay. Yeah, Dave, what did you ride when you rode?
Well, over the years, many different bikes from, my favorite was Suzuki, but I had Hondas, I had Kawasaki's, I had a Ducati, I had a Harley, I had Triumph. I had many bikes over the years, but yeah.
I had all of them.
Many bikes.
I never had a Ducati though.
Yeah, I had an M900, nice bike. It was good. It was fun. But yeah, no, I'm not riding anymore.
Okay. I'm afraid to ask why. I think I know why, but I'm afraid to ask.
Well, like you said, I had an accident. I broke my spine. I had 4 breaks in my spine. It was a really tough injury, still is. I've got a lot of hardware in my back now. I got 2 big rods that go the length of my back. I've got 9 screws about this long. And so, yeah, that's why I don't ride anymore.
Could you do it physically, but you just don't want to, or physically you're afflicted?
I mean, physically I am afflicted from what happened, of course. I mean, my spine doesn't bend anymore. I've got, like I said, the metal. So, but I mean, I could probably ride, but I choose not to at this point.
Okay. I understood. All right. Let's talk about another passion.
Yeah,
You were the announcer for the fight the other night, right?
I was, yes.
How was that?
Well, it was incredible.
Pretty electric?
It was great. It was electric. I mean, look, it's great to be back home. We've been on the road for so long. It's great to do shows in New York, especially in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, which is my old home. So that was a thrill. And then to have a fight like this where, God, what a fight. I mean, those guys really went at it.
It was
and
a
the whole
throwback, no
card,
doubt.
It was a throwback fight. They're both, again, young guys, undefeated guys. Boots was a unified champion, obviously at 147. Obviously, Xander was unified at 154. And they're both daring to be great. And so when they're young like that, they just have there's a different type of gusto that they have and that they fight with. And we saw that, especially in round 3, which was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I told Jack it doesn't get better than that. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, Dave, I know you care about these fighters. You become emotionally attached to a lot of them. And even though you can't say you're rooting for them, you wish them nothing but the best. And being so close to the action, so close to the ring, even though I'm in the media, I'm not right on top of the fighters. Like even on one of the undercard fights, Ben Whitaker, who's creating a big buzz in the UK, he stopped Popeye Rivera in 2 rounds, and you're very friendly with Popeye Rivera. And Whitaker beat him nearly too easily, but you noticed Popeye Rivera, wasn't sweating at all when he entered the ring. I mean, I think he didn't look warmed up to you, did he? I think you mentioned that to me yesterday.
Yeah, he looked dry when he came to the ring. Sure, I've known Popeye for a lot of years. We did fights for him years ago. He's a great guy. He's a tough fighter, but at this point, he is a little bit of a veteran. He's been around a long time, whereas Whitaker's on the come up, and Whitaker's young, and he's got all the sizzle. We want to find out if he's got the steak. And so by stepping up these levels and fighting a guy like Popeye, that shows you stuff. And the way he got him out of there, it just shows you how talented Ben Whitaker really is. And Ben Whitaker is really a phenomenal guy. And obviously training with Andy Lee, I think, has made a big difference. Andy's a top-class trainer and a top-class guy, and he doesn't mess with guys that he doesn't really care about. And Ben really has seemed to up his levels. He's a dangerous fighter. And I think the way Eddie's moving him is the right way. And I think before no time, we're going to see him really atop the 175 division.
But getting back to the main event, when Zayas was having that big 3rd round, his moment or two, did it cross your mind at that exact moment that he might actually take Boots out then? That he might actually score a spectacular victory? And how shocked were you? Because I was shocked. I mean, beyond words. Like I was telling Frank earlier, even though I was covering the fight for my publication, Boxing News Monthly, I'm not embarrassed to say at that moment, I wasn't media. I was a fan. I was a fan starting, forgetting myself while I was there. I was going, he's hurt. Boots is hurt. Not that I was rooting against Boots. Not at all. Not at all. But just the excitement to see, a miraculous comeback from a guy who you wouldn't have given a nickel for his chances, a moment before.
Well, I don't think that's fair to say for Xander because, again, Xander is campaigning at 154, whereas Boots is moving up. You're not sure, how Boots is going to handle the new weight division. And listen, there's no doubt that conventional boxing wisdom says that Boots is a better fighter. And if you had to put money on one of these guys before the fight, you probably put it on Jaron Ennis. But there were a lot of people in the boxing world that liked Xander and liked his chances. So I don't think it's fair to say that, people wouldn't give him any chance before going into the fight.
But not before the fight. I'm talking about after Boots knocked him out in the 1st round. Was totally dominating him in the 3rd round.
But he wasn't hurt from that first knockdown, Jack. He wasn't hurt at all.
But Boots was completely dominating the contest.
Okay. But again, I never thought Xander was not going to make it through the round after that.
It seemed more as a flash. And I mean, that
Yes.
can happen. Like, this is the thing about certain guys, especially, Xander, you got to remember, he turned over very young, but he's only 23 years old. So he's young, and his last fight in San Juan was in front of a pretty big crowd. But even the lights there are not the same as the lights that happen in a place like New York or Las Vegas. So the lights were very bright. And of course, I'm not talking physically. I'm talking mentally. It's a big stage. Right. And it's, going back to, let's say, Canelo taking on Mayweather back in the day, a lot of people said it was too early for Canelo, this, that, and the third. Mayweather's used to the bright lights. Maybe Canelo wasn't so used to the bright lights at that point. It takes some time to get used to that. So an early knockdown, I don't think, is a huge indicator. Look, Boots is sharp. Boots is a very sharp fighter. He's got a huge IQ. He's a very well-schooled fighter. He's a Philly fighter. But yeah, look, to your point though, Jack, the reason I love the sport so much, and especially going into this fight, I felt like a kid because I was so excited for it. It's a fist fight, man. Anything can happen. So again, I mean, look at what happened the other day with Usyk and Verhoeven. I mean, conventional wisdom would tell us that Rico would have never even laid a glove on the former undisputed world champion. He's had one pro fight to a low-level guy. There's no way he's going to touch him. And in the round 11 where he got stopped, a lot of people had him up on the cards. So you never know what's going to happen in a fight, and this is why we watch. And when the one thing that a fighter doesn't know how to do is lose, it makes it interesting. And both guys did not know at that point how to lose. They both had the 0 at the end of the record. So it was exciting. And yeah, it was an incredible round. I think, people will put it up for round of the year. I don't know if it'll win it, but I think the electricity in that building, it felt like a throwback fight. Both of those guys wanted it with everything. And Xander really, you got to give him credit. He fought with everything in that round. It was unbelievable.
He'll be back. He showed well. He'll be back. He'll move up to 160. 160 is not the baddest block in boxing. We'll hear from him again. And again, there's no disgrace in losing to a guy like Boots, especially when he lost, because Dave, Boots was never pushed that hard. I know what he said at the press conference. It was his toughest fight, and he hemmed and he hauled. I don't need him to tell me that was his toughest fight, and that's the most he was ever pushed.
Now, Dave, you yourself have a pretty hectic schedule. For those who don't know, Dave Diamante is the ring announcer for Matchroom Boxing, and they have shows going on all the time. And Dave is all over the world. I mean, how do you compare that to when you were the public address announcer for the Brooklyn Nets of the NBA? And how do you compare doing an NBA game to being a ring announcer?
They're very different. I mean, they're both an absolute thrill, and they're both, it was an honor to do that for the Nets and for Brooklyn, and it's an honor to do it for Matchroom and for boxing. But they're very different because, the one thing that stays the same, I always throw back to Bob Shepard, the 3 C's of announcing. You got to be clear, concise, and correct. So you got to be all those for both of those jobs. You have to be prepared. You have to know the sport. The NBA was quite amazing because, on any given night, you're going to have 17,732 people in the Barclays Center, or whatever the capacity is for NBA. It's something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but it's just under 18. So you're going to have a packed house, and huge stars come. I mean, there was Paul McCartney and David Beckham and Bill Clinton and Jay-Z and Beyonce were there all the time. And so you have big stars at the NBA games, which is great. As we do with boxing. I mean, the other night there were tons of celebrities in the building, but the NBA runs like a really well-oiled machine. With Matchroom for boxing, they're probably maybe the best well-oiled machine in the sport, because we do fights more often than not, each week of the year. We don't do them every week, but we do them a lot. And we do them all over the world, which is an incredible testament to the company, because people know and promoters know, even just throwing one show in your hometown is very difficult. So for these guys to be handling the schedule that they handle with the small team that we have around the world it's quite something. But they run it very well, and it's great working with them. But as a PA announcer for the Nets and for NBA, you have to be always correct, but you don't have to be impartial. In a way, you're kind of you're kind of the man, the guy on the bench, because you're trying to get the crowd into it to root for your team. Whereas with boxing, I never do something for one fighter that I wouldn't do for the other. So even let's say the Ennis Zayas fight, I know Xander and his family quite well. I've spent time with them. He's a lovely guy. And of course, I know Bozy and Duran for a long time. So, yes, Duran is with Matchroom, but that doesn't mean that I always tell fighters, I don't root for any fighter. I want the best man to win, and I want them both to stay safe. So I never try to big one guy up more than the other guy. I try to really do it evenly for both fighters.
Yeah, I got you. Frank LOTIERZO mentioned something early in the show, and he could chime in with this about weigh-ins. You conduct the weigh-ins, for the Matchroom fighters for any show that you're working. What's your feeling about it being held when it is? Should it be held on the day of or the night of? I don't know what the answer is.
And what did Boots weigh, Dave, and what did Xander weigh?
How did they? In other words, Dave, Have you ever seen a fighter who looks one way to you at the weigh-in, and then you look at his body the next day and you think, this isn't the same guy? I'm not asking you to give us names. This guy is like, so much bigger. It's striking to you.
Well, that happens all the time, but first of all, this is really up to the sanctioning bodies and the commissions, right? Whether it's like the fight the other night, the New York State Athletic Commission, or whether it's up to the sanctioning organizations. I think some organizations have a clause where you can only gain X amount.
X amount.
Exactly. So that's up to them to decide that. I stay out of that type of politics. But yeah, guys obviously gain weight, and that's part of what the sport's about. I think there's also health risks, and you could talk to different ringside physicians and what they say about the dehydration when, if you have weigh-ins the same day, let's say, and a guy, because the brain is obviously getting knocked around inside the skull. So you want to have some fluid in there, right, to absorb some of that. And if guys are too dehydrated, it can become dangerous. I think, and again, I'm not a doctor, but that's what some physicians have said. I've heard them say. I don't know the validity of that, but that's all stuff for the sanctioning bodies and the commissions to figure out.
I don't like it, Dave. And look, what you said is true about the water in around the brain. But it's funny, heavyweights hit the hardest, and yet we've seen the least amount of deaths in heavyweights because they don't have to starve themselves or dehydrate themselves to make weight. I just don't like the idea that, as great as that fight was Saturday night, you basically had Evander Holyfield fighting Andre Ward when it came to weight, and I just don't like that. It's like they were junior middleweights, yet one guy was a cruiserweight and the other guy was a super middleweight when they got in the ring.
I mean, I think a big part of this game is knowing your body and knowing the weight. I think it's one of the toughest things for fighters to be able to stick to a regimen. And you see that a lot with different cultures because boxing is a global sport. So, of course, you got American fighters and Mexican fighters and British fighters, Russian fighters, fighters from all over Asia, South America. Some guys take the game very serious and they stay in the gym.
And that's the way to do it.
Some guys don't start training until they get a date. And that stuff can really show up in the habits. I mean, it's just, Ricky Hatton used to call himself Ricky Fatten because he gained weight between fights. So it's one of those things, it really helps to stay in shape.
Bernard Hopkins is a great example of that, Dave.
Well, there you go.
Like he said, he goes, when I go to camp, I'm working on strategy. I'm not working on reducing and cutting weight. He goes, 90% of these guys, they have to go to camp to lose weight. Then the last week, they talk about a strategy.
He stays in shape. And talking about the heavyweights, it's really interesting, but you talk about the strength of their punches, but yet the least amount of deaths. I don't know the numbers on it, but from what I understand, the serious injuries really happen from accumulation of punches, not from that big knockout punch, right?
So like rounds of fights, but dehydration, a lot of times I feel plays a role in it. But it's what it is. But anyway, very unfortunately, what it is. Dave, ring announcers have their slogans. Of course, Michael Buffer's "Let's Get Ready to Rumble" is legendary. Jimmy Lennon, it's Showtime. That was ideal, especially when he was calling fights on Showtime. Yours is "The fight starts now." That gets the crowd going. Did you have to actually think of a slogan? Because I can't imagine a high-profile ring announcer like yourself not having one. You have to have something to hit the crowd with full force. How long did it take you to think of that, and how did you think of that one?
Well, that's a great question, Jack. And I think that the important thing, the role of a ring announcer is very interesting because, you're the only guy talking to the crowd and talking to the TV crowd as well. Whereas commentators are just talking to the TV guys, you're talking to both TV and the live audience. And you really want to, of course, convey, like I said, the numbers correctly, the records, the weights, the hometowns, the name, the nickname, all that stuff. But at the same time, you also want to get everyone excited, including the fighters, right? Including the fighters. And you want to bring the crowd into the action. And sometimes you have all this pageantry before an actual bout where, the other night we had two different anthems, and you've got all the commissions and the sponsors and the sanctioning bodies, the presidents, the supervisors, the judges, the referee. By the time you get through all that stuff, people are kind of tuning out. So you need really that call to action to bring people right to, hey, here we go right now. Now we're coming, And, I say, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set and we are here. Because, we are here, and it's not just the people in the arena, but the people on TV watching. We're all here. We're here now. We, and I don't say I'm here, I say we, because we're all here.
Well, now LOTIERZO, he couldn't get the fight because of technical difficulty. It's not Frank's fault. It's the way things are today. I mean, trying to get fights on the apps, I don't blame Frank at all. It goes against us old timers.
So then I say, this is it. The time has come. And
I like that.
I wait. And then I yell at the crowd, I said the time has come. Because I really want to get him into it. And then I say, from the four corners of the world to the four corners of this ring, wherever we are, the fight starts now. Because from the four corners of the world, all these fighters, it's a world sport, it's a global sport, people watching from around the world, everyone's focused on this ring, the four corners of this ring, and of course it's the proverbial four corners of the world. All the eyes are focused on the world to here. And then the fight starts now, and I just, it gets me hyped, man. It really gets me hyped, it gets me excited.
Dave, I have two questions I have to ask before we run out of time.
Sure.
One, do you have to? I think I know the answer, but I just want to hear it. Like Rico Verhoeven, or whatever his name is. Do you practice guys? The guys that have the really tough names. Do you practice that and have to make sure you have it right? And do you go and you check with them before the fight? Like, how do you pronounce your name? Do you have to go through that?
Great question, Frank. And the answer, so I don't practice it, but what I do is I absolutely ask. It's a great question.
Can I say something, Dave? Frank, we had something like that at a banquet. Dave checked with me on the name, and he said, are you 100% sure?
Nice.
And I said, I'm practically 100% sure. And Dave walked away from me. That wasn't good enough to be practically. I had to know it perfectly and give him my word on it. It was at one of the.
All right, Jack, let him finish answering the question, because I have one more. Go ahead, Dave. So you go up to the fighter and you say, how do you say your name?
Like a great example is when I announced Guillermo Rigondeaux. The way his name is spelled, it looks like Rigondeaux, right? But I went to him and he said, my name is Guillermo Rigondeaux. I said, Rigondeaux. Sí, Rigondeaux. No Rigondeaux. No, Rigondeaux. Okay, thank you. So it's, you can't just look at a name and think you know it, because guys, Demetrius Andrade, but it's Andrade. It looks like Andrade.
Right.
He liked Demetrius Andrade. And then you got guys like Joseph Parker, who, I've known Joseph and his family for years. He's a lovely guy and a tough guy. I mean, obviously former heavyweight champion of the world. And I said to Joe, this was years ago, I was the first person to ever do this, and Joe will tell you this. I said to him, you got to have a tribal name. Joseph Parker, and he says, I do, but you'll never say it. I said, try me. He said, my name is Lupe Soliaila Ule Ale Maliatoa. I said, okay, hold on one second. So I wrote it down, and that's it. And then I've said his name ever since. And now other ring announcers do it too. But I was the first guy he was so excited when Joseph Lupe Soliaila Ule Ale Maliatoa Parker.
Nice.
It's great to see the guys get excited. So yeah, you got to check. You always got to check.
And my other question is, who was your favorite announcer? Obviously, you've been a boxing fan for a long time. Who did you like? I like Johnny Addy and Chuck Hall. How about yourself?
Oh, my God. I love that you just said Johnny Addy. I mean, Johnny, to me, Chuck Hall was great, too. I think Johnny Addy was just one of the best. I loved his voice, his delivery, but my favorite personal was Ed Darien. I always loved Ed Darien. I just,
He did a couple of my amateur fights. I know of him.
I just love the man, and rest in peace. He was not only was he, I just thought a great announcer, but he had a great way about him, and
he was, he's good. He's forgotten, but you're right. He was excellent.
God, I loved Ed Darien, and I loved how he used to, because he did so many fights in Atlantic City, right? And there were so many good Philly fighters and Jersey fighters, New York fighters that fought on that East Coast circuit and fought at the legendary Blue, and that fought in AC and all these great fight venues that we used to have back in the 80s. And he used to say stuff like, "This young man comes to us all the way from Philadelphia," and it's right down the street. All the way from, just the way that he said things. I just loved him. And yeah, I loved Ed Darien.
Johnny Addy was very formal. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
We have a split decision.
Things have changed over the years for the better as far as announcing a decision. It's incredible to think back in the past. If there was a split decision, they'd announce the two winning scores first and then announce the third. And I'm not sure when they figured out that was the wrong way of doing it.
Jack, one thing that chafes my ass more than anything, if I see it, I love pretty much all the announcers. As long as you are original and have your own style and have a love of the sport and respect the fans and the fighters, I'll support you. Guys that steal from other guys and do things like that, I don't like. But as long as you're original and you got a lot of love for the sport, I'll support you. But one thing I can't get behind is guys that don't know how to do the job correctly. You got to know how to read a decision. It's very important. It's a very important skill in boxing. You can't screw that up.
Dave, I want to ask you this. Did anyone ever try to peek over your shoulder at the scores when you're announcing it? When you get it, you want to read it the right way, but you don't want people looking at it ahead of you, maybe complaining, trying to interpret it. What's the deal with that?
Jack, I love that you just asked that question. So first of all, the answer, yes, it happens all the time. But I don't care who you are, even the referee. So a lot of referees want to know who won so they know whose arm to raise. My thing is, look, buddy, you just ref these two guys that were literally trying to take each other's heads off in the ring. You better know their names. Respect the fighters enough to know their names. It's not my job that you don't know their names. Because if a referee sees the card before and I'm saying, and your winner by whatever decision it is, they might raise an arm. I've had it happen. So I don't want anyone to see it. And I've had trainers, I've had promoters, I've had multiple people try to do that. I always, if you watch, I'll cup the, like I'm playing cards, like I'm at the poker table or dominoes. I got my dominoes close to my, I'll look at the card. I'll make sure if there's any discrepancy, I'll make sure I can read it correctly. If there's any discrepancy, I'll talk to the commission. Usually there's not. Usually it's very clear, but sometimes the handwriting is not good. So I want to make sure. It's always good to just double check, make sure you get everything correct, and then I go. And when I go,
Dave,
I go and I don't.
I have an odd question. Okay,
I think we're nearly running out of time. Last question here, Frank.
Dave, what do you do when you get the decision and it's a total wrong decision and you can't believe that they scored it that way? You have to play poker. You have to play poker, right?
Well, yes, of course. But what I will do if it's really skewed, I will double check with the commission and make sure, because this has happened before. Sometimes judges, when they write, they've got the scorecards and they usually fill them out before the bout. And once in a while, you'll have people fill out the scorecards wrong. So you do have judges sometimes that are scoring a fight for the wrong guy. You want to make sure it's all correct. So if something's really skewed, I'll go to the commissioner and say, can we double check, make sure this is right? If it's all right, I'm just the messenger. My job, I'm not a referee, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a judge. All I am is the announcer. So I'm, not to downplay what I do, but it's not my job to do that. I read the score. And, but you don't want to shoot the messenger, right?
No.
Dave, I'm looking at the time. We had technical difficulties, so we actually do have a couple of more minutes. I'm looking at the top of the screen. So normally we cut at 8, but we did start a little later because of technical difficulty. So you could keep
Dave,
going.
how did you get in boxing? Sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's
What,
okay.
what was your, obviously I can tell you're very passionate from talking, so, and I like that you have a love for it, but what drew you to it? Was it a fight, a fighter, somewhere you went with your father or whatever? What brought you into this sport?
Frankie, it's a long story, but I'll keep it very short. Say it like this. Family love of the sport, number one. So as a kid, boxing was always a big part of my growing up. Fights were always a big part of growing up. Music and music was always a big part of growing up as well. I was a drummer and then I was a DJ. And as a DJ, I was an MC on the microphone. I also boxed. And I never wanted to be a fighter, but I love to fight. I love to box, and I did box, and I trained for a long time. So I melded really my two passions. That's really it, just melding the entertainment and the fighting. But again, it's about getting in where you fit in. I didn't want to be a fighter. That was never my dream. I love to fight, and I love to be in the gym. I love to train and spar and all that stuff, but I don't want to be a fighter, It's a tough way to make a living, and
Well, you're not kidding.
The more you box, the more you got to respect these fighters for what they do and how difficult it is what they do, and that's why it also really upsets me when guys don't take the time to get guys' names right, their hometowns right, their nickname, because these guys are putting everything on the line. The least you can do is to get things right and make them feel special.
Call them by their right name and where they're from, and show them that respect.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I double the surname, because it's just like they deserve it. When you say that first name, Ennis, everyone's cheering, which is great, but that second time, Ennis, it like breaks through. They really hear it. They deserve it, man.
Dave, you look great, but a while back you were in a horrific motorcycle accident. You look fantastic. Are you still riding the motorcycle?
No, not anymore, Jack. No, we touched on this a little earlier in the conversation when you were having difficulties, but no, I have not ridden since the accident.
Frank was from Smokin' Joe Frazier's gym, and of all the fighters, Smokin' Joe was the coolest with that motorcycle, the way he looked on it and all, and I think that
he had a hog.
Yeah.
Joe was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
I remember having dinner with Joe and Chuck Zito many years ago at Scores. And what I loved is, I've known Joe, obviously, rest in peace, and Marvis, his son, too. But I knew
Marvis
Joe
a
for a
great
long
guy.
time. And Joe, Joe used to always come to the Golden Gloves when we had it at the Garden back in the day. And, Joe was always such a supporter of the sport. He was such a gentleman, such a great guy. But so we had dinner one night, and I was holding the door open for him, and he gave me that signature, the left to the body as I was holding it. And it was such a badge of, I was like, yo, Joe Frazier just gave me a body shot, it was so awesome. Obviously it was a love tap, but it was just awesome, man. What a guy. I miss Joe.
For the people listening, one of the really good guys in the sport is you, Dave. You've donated your time to do things. What sticks with me, many years ago, there was an off night where there was a Golden Glove show that was sponsored by this group I used to be affiliated with. A small Golden Glove show. You called me up and just volunteered to do the ring announcing that night. And you had such a busy schedule. And why? And you just volunteered out of the clear blue. And you do things like that. You get off, you might be working a fight in Sheffield or anywhere else in the world. You get off the plane, you rush to a banquet, you're sleep deprived just because you want to help out with the boxing community. So I want everyone to know, publicly all the good deeds that you do.
Jack, his last name is Diamante. What do you expect? I assume he's a paisan. Of course he's a good guy.
Man, I just feel really honored to be in the sport. And I'll tell you this, I came up in the amateurs.
We have to go soon, Dave. So basically,
but thank you for the compliments, Jack. Yeah, yes, boxing, it affords you a lot, and there's a lot of guys doing a lot of great things. I mean, what's really strange, I did a lot of work, volunteer work with Boyd Melson and his team Fight to Walk. And then also Danny Jacobs when, because he had the spinal issue with the cancer. And I did stuff with him about spinal injuries. And then I go ahead and I break my spine.
Well,
Amazing. But I'm blessed. I mean,
you gotta come back to the show. I mean, when you have a little break in your schedule, which is rare, we loved having you on here. I mean, it's safe to say you're one of our best.
You were
guests.
great, Dave.
Yeah.
Guys, I really appreciate you having me on. It's an honor, and love you both, and just thank you for what you guys do. And yeah, great stuff, and I hope to catch you at the fights very soon.
All the best, Dave. We'll be talking. Take care.
See you guys. Thank you.
See you, Dave.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, that wraps it up, Frank. Great guest in Dave.
Yep.
Fascinating guy.
He was great.
Okay, see you next week, Frank. It was a lot of fun.
See you later, everybody.